Hey kids. So this was mostly just me entertaining the idea of evol as a proper deck standalone after seeing it on PAX tier list. I'm still not entirely sold on it, but it is a really fun deck. This is the list that I think I'm settling on, but in the side you'll see a bunch of options that I've been considering. The Evo pill package is unfortunately a little more bricky than I'd like it to be, so I'm considering like playing Dirac Aolo as my summon off Misk so I can like go into like synchro plays, but the problem is that the best synchro 5 is Danglong, and to make use of Danglong, now you have to introduce more Garnets, which is like defeats the point of cutting the pill package. And then just in the extra deck, more ways to use space. Like I was finding myself having trouble getting over large bodies, so between one of these two packages to just beat over anything and then make a Zeus like Dark Rebellion, Detach 2, go into uh, Overlord, then just punch and make Zeus in main 2 with one activation, or like Utopia going into the Lightning does the same thing. I don't know which I'll do, but yeah, I'm sure I'll figure it out sooner or later. But yeah, evols are shockingly fun. They're really, really cool. I absolutely love just so much about them. The flavor, the gameplay. It probably there are a lot here, a lot of deck building choices that I don't necessarily agree with after playing a deck for a while. To Solda, definitely. This should be the second Rush, or sorry, Lars. But, this is, like, fine. Enough of me rambling. I'm just going to start getting into the games and get ready for a lot of games, because I got very, very into it playing games to learn this deck. And, I just had a lot of good games. For our first game, we'll be going up against Pure Merlantian. Well, not really Pure Merlantian, because, like, Merlantian can't be pure, but, like, I mean, come on, when was the last time you saw a Mermail without Atlanteans, right? Like, anyway, we are going first. We're going to start things off with Evo Diversity, grabbing a copy of Forest. We've drawn the Najasho, so we're going to go ahead and summon that off the Forest. Then set Evolutionary or Evo Force from the deck, which will tribute the Najasho for Elias. We'll trigger Najasho and Elias in chain. Elias summons Rios. Najasho summons Diplo. Diplo is mandatory, so it'll unfortunately be Chainlink 1. Then Rios is going to set Singularity and Foolish another Rios to make both Elias and the Forest level 4. Then we'll overlay for Logia and Doka and set Econ, Imperm, Evo Singularity. This is just such an insane board. Our opponent's going to Abysteus, pitching heavy infantry, which unfortunately does force out both Dolkas. I really just don't want them to stick a big Mermail, because that can contest any of our guys, right? They're going to try to Aria, but we'll rush that. And then they're going to normal Neptibus, which we will negate with Logia, and they'll concede because they have just a Megalo with not enough monsters to discard. Next, we'll be going up against Galaxy Photon. You wouldn't know it looking at that hand, really, except for the Galaxy 100, but it is Galaxy Photon. So we are going first. Yet again, we're going to go ahead and Evo Diversity for Mega Chirella, which will normal summon, and then pitch Rios for Volcano. This is going to trigger the Volcano to reborn the Rios, which will now trigger to set Singularity. We'll Fossil Dig for a copy of Diplo, and then Rios for Misk, which will then banish itself for an Archosaur, which will pop the Diplo for a Pill. We'll overlay for Dolka, then go for Linkaribo, secure Gardena, and then Evo Pill into UCT and set double Econ and pass. Our opponent's going to start things off with a Droplet, which does unfortunately clear most of the board. Then when they go for Galaxy 100, we'll Evo Singularity into Soda, which will, when they mill Photon Jumper and add Galaxy Trance, they'll activate Trance, but Soda does check this by popping both Jumper and Wizard. With just a Droplet and a trade-in in hand, they'll concede. Next up, we'll be going second against Predaplant Branded. So we are going second, so they're going to Keeper. We will let that one resolve, because, I mean, what the hell plays Keeper that isn't on Branded Fusion? And sure enough, they are on it, so they're going to Practice for Offer Scorpio, searching another one. Then they'll pitch Cobra for Chlamydia Sundew. Chlamydia Sundew is going to go into Ambula Melodies, which will then search them a copy of Planning. The Ambula Melodies tributing itself for a copy of Saraceniat, Then they'll fire the Brain Infusion, but I've been holding the Ash for it. They'll set 2 and attempt to leave main, to which we will Nibiru. That's going to trigger the Saracenia to add them a Biblis, but I'm not too stressed about that. We're going to normal Najasho and then econ, tributing the Najasho to steal the Primal Being token, which will trigger Najasho to summon Rios. Rios is now going to set Singularity, and then we'll activate Rios, milling Misk to make both the Rock and the token a level 4. We'll go a level 4 Dinosaur specifically. We'll go for Misk for 1 into Archosaur, but because we already have the Tyranno in hand, Pill's not going to do much for us. So we'll just link off into Phoenix and force out the Predaplanning. Our opponent is going to chain it for obvious reasons, then trigger Biblis to search Bufalicula, and we'll get in for some damage, and then in main phase 2, we're going to go ahead and link off into Unicorn, set the Singularity, and pass. The reason why we linked off into Unicorn was just so we would have targets for Singularity. We'll go to Lania, and when they go for Offer Scorpio, we'll negate the summon, and then we'll chain Singularity on resolution to go for Rosh, which clears the Bufalicula. They'll activate Bufo, we'll negate with Rosh, and with 1 negate left, our opponent will concede. Next up, we'll be going second against Marincess, and once again, Ash Nibiru, hell of a combination. They're going to Small World away a Spring Girl, going through a Gamma CL for Blue Tang, which will mill one of them, and then they'll go into Blue Slug, doing the usual chain blocking and finding off the top Battle Ocean. They'll activate Battle Ocean and then go into Seahorse, go to Sea Angel. Angel's going to grab them a second Battle Ocean, and they'll go for Coral Anemone. And then they're going to equip Anemone with Blue Slug and then Reborn Blue Tang. They'll try to dive, we'll Ash that, then they'll Spring Girl, summoning 1, and we will nib here. They're going to trigger the Anemone to add back Dive and pass turn. We're going to start things off with Evo Diversity, grabbing us a copy of Megatorella, which we'll now activate, pitching this Rios for Volcano. Volcano is going to reborn the Rios, which will trigger the Rios, which will set Evo Singularity. We'll Rios to mill a copy of Misk, making these 2 level 4 dinosaurs, then banish the Misk for Archosaur. We'll overlay for Logia, link off in a Mask, summon UCT, get over the token, get in for 35 and in for 800, and then that's the turn. Our opponent's going to start things off with Dark Ruler no more, which does clear most of this board, but we still have Evo Singularity. We'll activate Lania for no effect to go into Dolka. They'll activate the effect, we will negate and destroy, but unfortunately Dive does check this. Dive Battle Ocean makes it very difficult for Dolka to interact because they can chain block all their on-summon effects, so they will be able to stick bodies, unfortunately. But we will negate the Spring Girl, and they're out of gas. So, recognizing that we have lethal on follow-up, they'll just scoop it up. Next up, we'll be going first against Mikanko. So we are going to start things off with Evo Diversity, grabbing us a copy of Najasho, which will normal summon, and then we'll Evo Force, tributing the Najasho for an Elias for no effect. Najasho is going to summon Rios, which will set Singularity from deck, and then we'll go ahead and activate Sakitama for an extra normal, giving us 2 monsters for Rios to modulate. We'll make Sakitama and Elias level 4 dinosaurs, then Misk for an Archosaur for no value. We'll go into Dolka, go into Linkaribo, go into Secure Gardener, then double Evo Pill for a UCT. We'll set the second Singularity and pass turn. Our opponent's going to start off with Prep of Rites, grabbing them a Ohime. They'll attempt to activate Ohime, we'll Dolka that, to which they'll chain Mikanko Ceremony to keep the body around. They'll activate the Great Mikanko Legend Engrave, to which we will chain the Singularity for Logia. Then they'll normal Hare and go for Arabesque. We'll negate and destroy the Arabesque, and then chain Singularity to Resolution. They'll go for Ohime, we'll Dolka, and as we're choosing what to summon, our opponent will concede. Next up, we'll be going up against Traptrix. We are going second, unfortunately. They're going to Tantalizing Tune, and I'm kicking myself for not drawing an Ash to punish it. They'll normal Mermelio, and which will imperm that. Then they'll go for Sarah, set 2, and pass. This imperm is unfortunately not doing much work. We'll normal summon Rios and activate the effect to set Singularity, then activate the effect Foolish. They'll imperm, but we can chain this econ to dodge the imperm. We'll go ahead and mill a Najasho to make the Singularity live, get in for 800, set the imperm, and pass turn. In standby, we'll Singularity for a Rush. This will unfortunately trigger the Sarah, so we're going to have to rush that, to which they'll chain Traptrix Trapple Nightmare, which will force out the second Rush activation. This card's not once per chain, it's insane. They'll normal Mantis and activate the effect, to which we will imperm. And from there, they'll go into Kularia and go to the end phase, summoning Dionea back, which will reset the Traptrix Trapple Nightmare. From here, we are for the most part, seemingly free to pop off. We'll normal summon Forest and activate the effect to summon back Najasho, and then Forest to set Evo Force and go into Nightmare Phoenix, pitching this Mega Chirella to force out the Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. We'll Evo Force, tributing Najasho. They'll Ash it, but I don't care. We tribute to Najasho. We'll summon Volcano from deck, which will trigger to summon back Rios, which will trigger on summon to set Singularity. We'll Rios to Foolish Misk and go into Logia, and we'll just go ahead and walk over the Dionea. We're trying to keep them off exactly Sarah. We'll Logia the Dionea, and then Singularity on Resolution of Garden, going for Solda. We'll pop the Solda, they'll Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, which will keep the Sarah around, but because Solda still has material, it'll be protected. They'll Pudica on Resolution to banish it, and unfortunately this Solda was not properly summoned, so we'll just go ahead and get the value out of it while we can by popping the Pudica and accept that. We'll go ahead and banish Mega Chirella to give Logia back materials, then we'll Fossil Dig for Rios, normal Archosaur, pop the Rios, grab double Evo Pill, and then Pill. They'll Holotea. We will negate the activation with Logia, which means the Sarah won't trigger. And with UCT, Linkuriboh, we can get in and over for a lot of advantage. We are going to pass turn from here. Our opponent's going to rip a Trap Hole Nightmare. They're going to Holotea to Reborn Dionea, which will activate the effect to reset Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. But given that they don't have any way to actually make me trigger any of these, I just have game on board, so they're going to concede. And now we're up against a different player, also on Traptrix, but this time we have the play. We draw an Elias, not where you want to be. We're going to Fossil Dig for Misk, then normal Rios, and activate the effect to set Singularity. We'll Misk and then go for Misk Engrave to summon out Animadorned Archosaur, which will pop the Elias to grab a copy of Pill. We'll Rios, milling Mega Chirella, and then go into Linkuriboh and Secure Gardener. We'll double Evo Pill for UCT, set Imperm, and pass turn. Our opponent's going to start things off with Trap Garden, and then we will Singularity to go into Rosh. They're going to extra normal the Merm. We will Imperm the Mermelio, knowing that we aren't going to get much more use out of it this game. They'll Sarah, and then go use their normal on Mantis, activating the effect, to which we will chain Rosh to negate the Sarah, because that's realistically where most of the value comes from. They're going to special Arachnicampa, and on summon, we're going to pop the Secure Gardener to book both. They're going to Holotea, but we're going to negate Sarah again. And from here, we're basically free to pop off. We'll Evo Diversity for Mega Chirella, the normal Mega Chirella, and activate the effect, pitching Ash for a second Rios, which will set Singularity, and then we'll activate Rios to mill Najasho, making the Holotea level 2 to potentially fuck with our opponent. We'll go to Dolka after giving Rosh more material, and seeing that we have game, our opponent will concede. Next up, we'll be going second against Gold Pride Pumpkin. Holy, what a hand. Wow. That's a poker winner. All right, so our opponent is going to start off with an E-Tele for Xiamen, and then they're going to pay 6 for Xiamen. I'm holding this Ash for the Foxy Tune, but then I see Madame Spider, and I realize that probably keeping them off the trap card is good enough. They're going to Talents to look at our hand, and nice. They're going to go ahead and pitch this Ghost Ogre for a Sharkusai, then go into Rising Carp, summoning Deer Note, and Wagon. Wagon's going to activate to grab them a copy of Extreme Session, and then they'll go into Jam Dragon Drive, which will then allow them to search a card, and they're going to Reborn Rising Carp. They're going to search for the Ghost Ogre, and then go for, and off the top, rip a Better Luck next time, going for Nitro Head, special summoning the Nitro Head, going to the Zombie Vampire, milling 4 for both of us, and then summoning Foxy Tune and going for Hemp. These mills, by the way, are what salvaged this game. So we're going to start things off. They're going to, in standby, give us a Nitro token. I don't agree with this Nitro token placement. I think they should have put it under one of the EMZs and put their monster in the other one. Because then they can cover not only the 2 monster zones next to the Nitro token and the monster zone and the spell trap zone behind it, but also the EMZ in front of it. But, you know, it is what it is. We're going to normal summon Forest and use Forest to set Najasho, and then use Forest to set Evo Force. We'll Evo Force away the Najasho for a copy of Diplo, which is going to pop Better Luck, and then Najasho is going to summon Rios from deck. We're going to Rios to mill Misk and make a Forest into a level 4, then go into Grenosaurus, the Magic Head Cannon. We'll Misk for Animadorned Archosaur, which will then pop this Forest for a copy of Pill, to which our opponent will draw. will pill into UCT because the game is now over. They'll gain a bunch of attack, but we're going to zombie vampire, punch over the zombie vampire, then actually destroy the Nitro Head by battle to trigger the Grenosaurus to gain attack and burn for 1,000. And then in main phase 2, we'll UCT popping Grenosaurus to destroy it, which will then destroy the Extreme Session and burn for the remaining 1,000. For our next game, we'll be going up against Kashtira, although you wouldn't know it looking at that grip. Wow. Double Veiler, Nib, Ash, Desires. That's... wow. So we're starting first. We're going to Evo Diversity for a copy of Najasho and then Normal Forest and activate the effect to summon Najasho face down. We'll Forest for Evo Force and then Evo Force away the Najasho. I don't know why they didn't hand trap me at all during this point. I think they just wanted me to play into the Nibiru. We're going to summon Diplo from deck and Diplo from hand, Rios from deck, and then in response to Rios' own summon effect, they're going to Nibiru. We'll set Evo Singularity and then summon UCT, set the second Evo Singularity, and pass turn. Our opponent's going to rip a Birth and then Desires for Ash and a Fenrir. They're going to activate Birth, and in response, we'll Singularity for a Rosh. They're going to normal Fenrir, and on summon, we're going to go ahead and pop the token to set both with UCT, and we're going to go ahead and punch over both the sets for 2,000 burn damage, which is pretty nice. Then we're going to get in for 25 with Rosh and pass turn. They're going to rip a Desires off the top, which is pretty damn good. We will go ahead and negate it, though, so it doesn't really do as much as I want. Then they'll Birth, we'll Rush that, and then on Resolution, we'll Singularity into Dolka. Our opponent is going to set this Ash Blossom and pass at... we're going to draw Volcano, but we can just go to battle phase. We have exact lethal. Our opponent concedes. This deck is awesome, but it has a couple really severe weaknesses. Firstly, there's just a lot of very awkward aspects of Rios, which is the best starter in the deck. It has too much attack to be reliably linked off, so it on its own cannot be a one-card combo. It has to modulate exactly 2 monsters, so if you have, like, if the only monsters in the field are, like, Elias, Rios, you're shit out of luck unless you send, like, a Forest, but then what the hell Xyz are you making with that, right? It's also really awkward in that it doesn't get the effect to Foolish when it's summoned by an evil tile, only when it's summoned by a fire reptile or a fire monster or normal summoned, which means that it doesn't work with Evo Force, which means that Forest on its own doesn't actually do anything, which is supremely frustrating. And beyond that, there's just other frustrations, like the aforementioned brickiness of the Archosaur package. I really hate drawing any of these cards. There's the severe Ash weakness. Like, if you Ash Mega Chirella or Evo Force, I functionally fold unless Evo Force tributed exactly Najasho. But you know, it's a really cool deck. It's really fun, and I absolutely love Evo Singularity. The fact that it's not once per turn is what sold me on this deck, because, like, Lars and Solda and Lagia and Dolka, they're all very good cards, but they're not game-winning on their own. But when they're combined with another one, it just becomes way too much to handle. Like, Dolka Lars, what the fuck beats that? What the fuck beats that? Like, how do you beat Lagia, Dolka, Lars? You know? It's insane. It's really insane. Alright, see ya.